let's just get into it then. We're going. This is F101 week, whatever week this is. Week 8. It's the Miami review. And before we do anything, we're gonna start with a little bit of politics. Hannah has a style points petition for Dave.
Okay.
She asked me if I could assign the style points. I told her to take it up with you.
Okay.
Okay, so my style points prediction last week was that the race was going to get canceled. And technically, if you think about it, the original race was canceled because they had to move it up 3 hours.
I wouldn't call that a cancellation.
The original race time didn't happen, so that time was canceled. So
I can. I think I can
think
give
a
you
half
one.
point. Oh, one
Yeah.
whole point.
I'm
one
trying
whole
to look.
point sounds great. I think one whole point
I
is
think half
fair.
point sounds better. Looking at everyone else only having one style point, that's like a half. That's like a barely like something did happen with the race time, but it not really can be close to cancellation.
I'll take the half. I'll take the half.
And it wasn't because I ran close to straight to Miami, which I know I put there, but
Yes. Yes. So let's get into it. Let's get into Miami then. But first, some brief introductions. I, as always, am the host, Max. I'm joined by Dave, our style points master, style points czar, style points emperor, whatever you want.
yeah, the leader of the style points last year got negative style points, so that's how I got the position.
I believe you did finish dead last in this stuff. We also have Hannah,
Hi.
the style points petitioner, and the Nat, who I believe is muted, and that's okay.
It's okay. I can still say hi.
All right. Hello. And that's our crew for now. I don't know if anyone else is going to join. We'll figure it out as we go. So yes, we are reviewing the Miami Grand Prix. We were promised chaos and rain, and we got one of those things. We got one of those things. But before we go into it, something has gone horribly wrong with my standings here. I have Mercedes in first with 13,580 points, which doesn't seem correct. Let me fix that right now and see how many points they actually have. Results, teams. 180. Where did the 35 come from? Anyway, then below them, Ferrari in second and McLaren in third, but catching up, Red Bull has secured, well, not really secured, but Red Bull has now put themselves up into fourth.
Catching up is a wild thing to say for 30 to 94.
No, I was saying more that they've overcome Alpine and Haas and got themselves into fourth.
Okay, I guess so.
Yes, and then Alpine fifth, Haas sixth, Racing Bulls, then Williams, who put themselves ahead of Audi, and then Cadillac and Aston Martin still at the bottom. In the drivers, we have Antonelli leading with 100 points even. Russell behind by 20. He's got 80. And then Leclerc third, closely followed by Norris and Hamilton. Then Piastri, then Verstappen, Behrman, Gasly, Lawson, Colapinto, Lindblad, Hadjar, and Sainz all tied with 4 points. Bortoleto below them with 2. Ocon and Albon each have 1, and everyone else has 0. So yes, we were promised chaos and rain over the weekend, and we got one of those things. Before we get to the race, briefly, we can talk about the sprint, which was very tame, especially when compared to the race. Our finishing order was Norris, Piastri, Leclerc. That was your podium. And then you had Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli, Hamilton, and Gasly rounding out the points. And then Hadjar, Colapinto, Ocon, Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Alonso, Perez, Stroll, Albon, and Bottas behind them. Lindblad and Hulkenberg did not start the race, and Bortoleto did finish the race, but he got disqualified afterwards. And I believe it was an air intake issue on his car.
That counts as cheating.
Otherwise known as, yes, but not really. It was accidental. So I don't
Half
think
point,
you get a
half
style
point.
points for someone getting caught.
That's me.
No,
Half
no
point.
one cheated intentionally.
God damn it.
Antonelli, Verstappen had horrible starts again. It's becoming a trend. And McLaren took a very easy 1-2 at the start and just held it. Clean air is king once again. No one could catch Norris as he was out in front. Red Bull really struggled in the sprint, and so did Antonelli. Verstappen and Hamilton race each other, which is always good cinema. Overall, though, the sprint, like I said, was pretty tame. But I think what's interesting was the performance in the sprint compared to the race were relatively different. McLaren was better in the sprint, Ferrari was better in the sprint, and Mercedes and Red Bull were much better in the race.
I mean, McLaren looked crazy out there. They it was easy for them. I wonder what happened of why they couldn't replicate that in the race, because it didn't seem like, oh, it's just because it was a few amount of laps.
Yeah.
I guess just being in front really helps, but I mean, Antonelli had a fight when we get there. Had a fight to get in first for the race. So why was the sprint so boring?
I don't know. I think part of it was it was dry. So between the sprint after qualifying, between qualifying and the race, it had rained a bunch. And so the track lost all of the grip and all of the rubber, so it was very fresh. No one had any grip at all. That's why you got some of the spins you saw in the race, which we'll talk about. So maybe under normal and hotter conditions, McLaren is just maybe better. Um, but it is weird that they were so good in the sprint, and then even during qualifying, they weren't even as fast, and I was very surprised. I was very confused as to what had happened to them between the 4 hours between the sprint and qualifying. And maybe their
I mean,
setup for the race, the setup used for qualifying, you have to use for the race, but you can switch between the sprint and qualifying. So maybe the setup changes they made, or maybe it was the setup changes everyone else made the other teams faster.
also to be fair, I mean, they still did extremely well in the race. So it's not like they fell off. It's more of they
Well,
dominated so hard in the sprint and no
yeah,
one could pass each other. It's what happened
they
with
fell off
everyone?
compared to the sprint.
Yeah.
They were very dominant in the sprint, and then they was not the case uh during the race. So, but yeah, the sprint was pretty tame. It was pretty there was no safety cars. I don't think there was any collisions or anything like that. There were some overtakes, but it's pretty calm sprint. And McLaren were on the front foot, and then they kind of lost that in qualifying. I think that was the biggest change, was between the sprint and qualifying. 'Cause they didn't qualify very well. Verstappen qualified second, and Antonelli first for the race. So McLaren was nowhere near the front row, but they were for sprint qualifying. So very. I guess we'll see. Maybe it's if it is a sprint versus race thing, we'll know next race in Canada, which is also a sprint weekend. So maybe the same trend will emerge, which would be very weird.
True. It could also just be that, I mean, we'll talk about the race, of all the crazy stuff that happened in the race, just mixing things up
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. But, I mean, we can
And
get right into the race. No one has anything else to say about the sprint, which was, pretty quickly
just
replaced in the headlines.
shout out Pierre Gasly scoring 1 point.
Go! Let's go!
Woo.
Got that last point in
I hope he can do something
Andrew.
within the race. Let's see what happens. Oh no.
Well, let's see what happens. So let's get into the race. Let's get into the race. So Antonelli wins. Norris comes in second. Piastri's third. That is your podium. Followed by then Russell, Verstappen, then technically Leclerc, but actuality Hamilton, Colapinto, Leclerc, Sainz, Albon, Behrman, Bortoleto, Ocon, Lindblad, Alonso, Perez, Stroll, and Bottas. Now you notice I didn't say a certain name in there, Pierre Gasly. It's because he didn't finish the race, along with Hadjar and Lawson and Hulkenberg. Um, Good day
Yeah.
for me. It was Kimi, Franco, McLaren, Williams, and Max Verstappen. Bad day for Isaac, Charles, Ferrari, Pierre, Haas, Audi, the broadcast graphic team, and also Max Verstappen. He got both categories. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, a driver has a good and a bad day on the same day. And that was Max for sure. In the
I,
race.
I mean, the race was just so crazy, and most of that craziness was Max just going crazy out there.
Yes.
And that Red Bull car, really makes him work for it.
Yeah. They weirdly enough, they had yet to address the weight issue with the car. So all of that fixes were the car's still really overweight, like not as bad as Williams, but that's Williams' big problem as well. So when they fix that, and with the current like aero package, I think it's gonna be good.
It's a,
Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes all had the Macarena wing, which is what people have been taking to calling it, the wing that flips all the way upside down. So that could have been something. No surprises that all the Red Bull and Mercedes McLaren cars that finished the race finished ahead of the Ferraris, even without Charles's penalty. So maybe there's something to that wing. Oh, actually, no, because McLaren didn't have one. Never mind. I disregard that. Ferrari just sucks. We've got
Ferrari's gone
chaos at
back
the
to
start.
where they should be.
Yes, messing it up. We got chaos at the start, at the end, and a little bit in the middle. But what we never got was the promised rain, despite every team forecasting for it and constantly talking about it during the race. Moving up the race 3 hours to avoid the thunderstorms worked. I thought it would have been really funny if they moved the race up and it ended up just downpouring and the race got delayed back to 4 p.m. I thought that would have been the best outcome, but not what happened.
All the Stroll fans were crying. No rain.
No
No,
rain.
no Stroll. Stroll gets to stay in the back.
No raid. And no Max masterclass.
It's true.
So it all started with another rough launch from Verstappen and Antonelli. And Leclerc, as usual, had a great one. This, like I said, is the trend. You can qualify behind the Mercedes and be fine because they can't start a race well. Russell also didn't start the race very well. Very curious to see what this means for Monaco in a few weeks' time, where you can't overtake. So, except for at the very start, if you're lucky. Verstappen spun at the start. Everyone avoided a crash, though. Hamilton and Gasly made contact at the start. No one had any grip. Pinto got into it with Hamilton. Hulkenberg had some contact. It was just pure chaos right at the start. Then on lap 6, Hajar put his car into the wall, while Gasly got flipped upside down by Lawson. Gasly's fine. Which brings out a safety car. Importantly, not Lawson's fault. His car completely just locked up. All of the electronics on it failed. And that's why he kept going straight when Gasly wanted to turn and everyone else wanted to turn. Verstappen was the only one to pit under the safety car. Russell messed up on the restart. There was some yo-yoing at the front, but it mellowed out in the middle, like towards the middle of the race, aside from Antonelli very frantically reporting a problem, and Verstappen just carving very aggressively through the midfield, which brought some ire from Carlos Sainz, who got mad about it on the radio. Although Max was within the racing rules, it's just a consequence of the rules that all the drivers agreed to. Max just takes the most advantage of. I think we talked about that a lot last year. And then on the front laps, Russell hit Verstappen, which damaged Russell's front wing. Leclerc spun out, hit the wall, and Russell and Verstappen got past Leclerc right at the end. So Leclerc finished 6th. He then got a 20-second penalty for unsafe driving after cutting corners and chicanes. Threw him down to 8th. Verstappen got a 5-second penalty, but it didn't matter. And Antonelli keeps his lead in the Drivers' Championship. Russell floundering a bit. McLaren is back. Red Bull might be. And Ferrari, in typical Ferrari fashion, gained time on Mercedes, but in the process, they lost positions on track, which is just astounding. Somehow their car got faster, but they got worse, which is just beautiful.
Every part of the crashes and weird stuff happening all comes down to a Red Bull, right? The Red Bull cars just like fucking up over and over again. What is happening over there? I mean, Hajar did crash, just straight up crash, but
Yeah.
like
Well,
Max is still
Pinto and
spinning
Gasly were
out.
both into it with got into it with Hamilton a little bit.
That's true, but it wasn't like there's no like mechanical failure. Like that Red Bull keeps on spinning out. The electrical thing that flipped Pierre Gasly, he just did a full flip. That car is something special. I mean both of them. And it's costing them like a lot of points. Like
Yes.
If that car wasn't spinning out like that, Max Verstappen would couple podiums already, probably.
If well, I don't know about a couple podiums in the first two races, but in this race, certainly, if he doesn't spin at the front, I think he wins.
Yeah, at least be contending for it. He wouldn't have to spend the entire race carving up the midfield. I mean, it looks like the same as last year, of where it's the top three teams and then Max Verstappen's in there doing his best. Although I think this year Hadjar is a good driver. The car just kind of sucks, and then I mean this race he just kind of messed it up.
Yeah,
He
I
was
watched
so
his talk.
frustrated too.
I do mention the difference between them, I believe. So we'll get to that. The difference between the two Red Bull cars and why there was such a big gap between Verstappen and Hadjar this week. But first, we got to talk about our winners. Mercedes, Antonelli is cruising. F1 is the Kimi Antonelli show right now. Meanwhile, Russell is floundering. He had car issues in China and a bad setup in Japan, but he was just off the pace in Miami. Miami was not his race. Canada, though, is the next race. It's very strong hunting ground for Mercedes, so he's gonna need to bounce back there, and I think he can. It's just not going to be easy. Even though this race was really rough for him, I wouldn't count Russell out just yet. Merck is still the team to beat. Other teams are catching up, but I still think it's like I think once Russell catches back up, like it's going to be Russell Antonelli, much like it was at the beginning of the year. A lot of comparisons to the championship last year, where uh world champion, the older and a younger teammate, the younger teammate is winning at the start of the year. Everyone thinks that he's going to win the championship, and then the older teammate, through experience and consistency, comes back and wins it all at the end of the year. So you can't count Russell out just yet. But there's no denying that Antonelli's got all the momentum in the team.
And Canada should be a great race for them because that's when Antonelli podium last year, right?
It is traditionally their best race.
Yeah. And so I mean, I think they're both be really fast on it. So hopefully we'll see some good Mercedes v Mercedes racing. And then also remembering last year, Kimi did terrible in Italy, just all up in that European like stretch. He was
Yeah.
awful. So we'll see if he can get over whatever was plaguing him. I mean, I don't think he has to take a school exam this year, so maybe that'll help.
And there's no Imola, which is where his problems began. Well, actually, Mercedes' problems began in Monaco. They were awful in Monaco. And they also forgot that it was a mandatory two-stop.
Okay. Well, we'll see if they can get over themselves. But yeah, Canada should be good. And Kimi's just been so good. I mean, the past couple races, beginning of the year, it's like, oh, he got in front, and he just stayed in front, like whatever. He had to work for it this race, so he really showed why he's in front right now and why Russell's not.
Yeah, if I was Kimi, I'd be taking practice starts in the simulator as much as I could. Because that's his
Yeah,
biggest issue. Him and Max, their starts are so bad.
yeah, and I think they showed a graphic of like the reaction time. His reaction time was actually fine, but I guess it was just getting the car into gear. And I mean, the Ferraris do have a car advantage on the starts too, but I mean, it's still really bad even compared to
I mean, the
the
McLaren
other
shot right
cars.
by him, too.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is. I don't know how to drive, but they're definitely doing something that he's not.
Yeah. So if I was Kimi, I'd be working on my starts. But he's if Russell wins in Canada, oh wait, there's a sprint, so there's extra points. But let's say without the sprint, if Russell wins in Canada and Kimi doesn't finish, Russell takes the lead. Um, so it's
Very
still only a
possible.
20. It's only a 20-point gap. So it's not crazy. I think the gap between Oscar and Lando was even larger around this time, or it was definitely was larger than 20 points at certain times in the year. In Oscar's favor specifically, and Lando still won. So I don't think you can count Russell out. We do have two less races, but I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think that's gonna be a huge deal. So look, I think that the battle between the Mercedes is gonna be good as the year progresses.
Yeah, and Kimmy can crash at any time.
True,
So
and so can George.
That's true.
but I would say Kimmy's more likely just because of inexperience.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
compared to Russell, I guess.
Talking about bad starts, last year he had such a bad start. He just beefed it right into Max Verstappen at the start. So,
Oh, in Austria.
uh, yeah. So we'll see if he can hold on to it for long enough.
Yeah. So, and Sam's not here to gloat about Kimmy, and that's okay. Below Mercedes, I think in performance, not necessarily in the standings, but is McLaren. Uh, they have proven again that they can develop the hell out of a car. Both Norris and Piastri were great this weekend. Norris won the sprint, Piastri came in second, and while uh, they finished 2-3 in the race. So they're back, I think. It seems they're back. I'm glad that they can bring the fight to Mercedes, give us some good entertainment, give us some good racing. It's not just a blowout every weekend. However, once someone gets far enough ahead, the clean air just it keeps them there. As we saw with Norris in the sprint, and then Antonelli kind of later on in the race, and like Antonelli in China, and what being in front has such a huge advantage. And if you qualify in front or you end up like overtaking to get in front, then you deserve that advantage of clean air. But sometimes I wish that advantage wasn't so severe.
Yeah, and once you're more than 1 second ahead, they don't get the overtake mode,
Yeah.
and you're just clean out of there. Yeah, but it is a question of like fairness versus entertainment. And it's definitely fair that they get to have that advantage, but not entertaining at all. So many times it just becomes like looking at P2 and below to see what happens there. You already know that P1's got it.
Yeah. To be fair, Kimmy did only finish 3.2 seconds ahead of Lando, which in a race is like obviously in a race that's huge, but they like it's not like a double digit like 10-second plus gap that we've seen in the past. Now, Norris did finish 27 seconds ahead of Oscar. So, there was a huge gap there.
It's not as bad as it was in the first couple of races where like you just had clumps of like racers like 30 seconds apart. Like it was
Yeah.
a little bit closer this time. Although maybe artificially so just because they got rid of some engine power. So
Yeah.
they couldn't go as
So,
fast.
but McLaren is very good at developing a car, and they've proven that once again. In fact, I saw an article today that said Mercedes is asking McLaren like what they did to the engine to get so much out of it. Like how did they use the software to get so much out of the engine, which is very funny.
Why
Because
would
that's
they ever
Mercedes
tell
engine.
them?
Yeah, A, why would they tell them? And B, that's Mercedes engine. You don't know how to get the most out of your own engine?
Well, see what they did is they completely bricked the car the first two races, and they figured it out.
Yeah, they
They had a bunch of engineers doing 20-hour days because they broke the car, and they figured it out. That's
But where
it.
did Lando finish in Australia?
Uh,
He finished
let's see.
fifth. So how does this year look if they start every race? Maybe we're not talking about this insane McLaren comeback. Maybe it's like, oh, they've just been making steady progress. But
Yeah,
we don't know because they missed the first two races.
I mean, they missed the first two races, and they're close to Ferrari already. Like
Yeah.
they'd be in second easy.
Yes, 100%. So McLaren is back, and they are not the title favorites yet, but they're definitely. I think they were right when they said they're going to be bringing it to the championships. So they're clearly going to fight there, and it was good. It was good to see other cars, in the mix for a win, even if ultimately at the end of the day, Mercedes still won pretty handily. So that is McLaren, Ferrari, the masters, the masters of success. Ferrari may have made progress on Mercedes, but not as much as McLaren and not as much as Red Bull. So they got faster, but they lost positions on track doing so. That's the Ferrari way. Now, to be fair, it's a bit of an over-exaggeration. Leclerc was on the podium all race right up into the end when he spun on his own and just ruined his race. but Hamilton wasn't having a good time, and he took away Max Verstappen's favorite pastime in F1 of battling an Alpine on track. So now it's Hamilton's turn as the multi-time world champion to fight an Alpine on track. Ferrari was getting into it with his race engineer on the radio. I don't think Hamilton was as much, but it was definitely a weekend to forget for Ferrari, who lost out on podiums in both races in Miami.
It was so sad and so Ferrari to watch Leclerc just get passed at the very last straight. As his car is just trying to chug along to the very end.
Yeah. And also, both of their pit stops were slow. I think that's important to mention. Both of their pit stops were very slow.
They had like 2 weeks where they were happy. And now we're back to some sad boys.
They were happy and they still weren't winning.
Yeah,
they're
like we're happy. We're team 2 very handedly. We're having fun racing, and now they're not. And now they're back where they belong.
Yeah. So poor Ferrari just really had they really did have just a bad time in all weekend in the race, especially, and then right at the end, of course, Leclerc just spinning and putting it into the wall very briefly. So that's Ferrari. It won't show in the standings and the results, but Red Bull made great progress on their car. Verstappen qualified in second for the race, and he was the only one to improve on his second run in Q3, which I thought was interesting. He did spin on the opening lap, and then he took a bold strategy with an early pit stop, and it kind of worked. He was lethal on the hard tires, and if he didn't spin, I think he could have won the race, like I said earlier. Hadjar in the other car had a horrible time. He got disqualified from qualifying, and then he crashed on lap 6 on his own fault, just trying to push the car too much. He was confused about his gap to Verstappen, saying he doesn't know where the performance went, but I don't think Hadjar got worse. I just think Verstappen got better. A driver like Verstappen is going to adjust to new updates to the cars easier, and when the car is fast, he's going to be able to get more out of it than Hadjar is at this point. Hadjar isn't bad, but he's not Max Verstappen. So I don't think it's this like the Red Bull second seat curse. I think Red Bull finally has a competitive car, and Verstappen is able to show that. Like Verstappen, if Hadjar can get 100% out of the car, Verstappen can get 120% out of the car. So, and that's just because he's Max Verstappen, he's great. It would be the same if it was like maybe not right now, but Lewis Hamilton a few years ago. I think would like kind of be in that same. It's the same thing where he can get the most out of a car because he's just that good. I think he's maybe fallen off a little bit. Lewis has, but definitely a few years ago in the same standing there.
Well,
But
I mean that the Red Bull is very hard to drive, and Max Verstappen's even had a hard time driving, which I think is like emblematic of the second seat curse, in that they make a car that's super hard to drive that Max can figure out, but whoever's in that poor second seat is just left in the dust, just trying to figure out how to make the car work.
Yeah, I think that was their big upgrade this week, was making the car easier to drive. They had a huge issue with the steering column. That was the big target of their updates, along with some pretty gnarly side pods that they added to the car. And importantly, like I said earlier, they haven't touched the overweight issue. So once they fix that, I think it's going to be really good. And I think Hadjar will be back up there in the points, without a doubt. It was just a rough weekend for him. I think getting disqualified from qualifying was really kind of a blow. And then, you feel like you gotta fight all the way from the back and get up to the points, and you just pushed a little too hard. But it's only his second year, so I'm not like I don't think we're gonna see like the huge gap that we saw between Max and Hadra, that we saw between Max and Yuki or Pierre or Liam or Checo or Albin or Kvyat, well, not
There
Kvyat,
seems to be a common thread here. Maybe we will.
So
Maybe
no,
we might.
I have hope that that Hadjar is gonna break the cycle. And I have high hopes for Red Bull after this race. I'm really confident, a lot more confident in the team than I was at the beginning of the year. So I think they're going to be right up there fighting for wins too. It might be a little more track
Mhm.
dependent, but they'll get up there.
They'll be right
And
up there with Alpine for sure.
they're already up there with Alpine now. Unfortunately, that joke doesn't work anymore.
uh,
But we can move on to Alpine if no one has anything else to say about Red Bull, because Alpine's next.
Alpine, let's go, Colapinto. He did
Yes,
something.
Alpine, mainly Colapinto, had a great weekend. Gasly cracked early on in the race, and it was up to Colapinto to finish in the points, which he did. He finished in 8th, but got promoted to 7th, which is his highest finish ever. And he keeps his team solidly in 5th place. They turned it around from last year. They're the top of the midfield, I think. If you're counting Red Bull now as being able to challenge up at the front, then they're no longer in the midfield, which means that Alpine is officially the top of the midfield, like they have been all year. Uh, they, they said that they could do it last year. They're like, we're going to turn around, we're going to be good, and no one believed them except for Dave. And now Dave is being rewarded, and he'll be rewarded at the pearly gates.
It's true. And you know what? What doesn't show up on just the standings? The gap between Colapinto and the next midfield driver, Carlos Sainz, was like 30 seconds. Like
Yeah,
it was that close. It was just if you erase all the all the good teams, it was Colapinto in first by a mile.
yeah, they were really strong. I would have loved to see what Gasly could have done if his car didn't flip.
They, uh, Liam Lawson.
So, but Alpine's in a good spot, and I'm excited to see. Weirdly enough, this is weird to say. I don't think I've ever said this in the history of F101. I'm excited to see what Alpine brings out next race. I'm excited to see what Alpine can do.
I'm not. We should end this season right now. Ending on a
Already on
high
top.
note. A P7 is as far as we're gonna get.
What happens if Alpine finishes dead last again? Somehow
Um,
they have 23 points,
if we
so
finish
it
dead,
would
if
take
we
a
finish dead last,
monumental failure.
it would not only take a monumental failure, it will take a monumental like comeback from Cadillac and
Yeah,
Aston
that's
Martin. Can you imagine either of those teams scoring a point right now? Just one.
I think Cadillac will. Cadillac will. I
Score
do.
1 point. It's like
I'll tell you one thing. I've got more faith that Cadillac's going to score a point than Audi.
it's an Audi.
No.
Audi scored too.
I know, but that was in the past, and now do you really see Audi scoring another point?
That's what I'm saying. But all these back marker teams are so bad this year. Like last year, like everyone scored besides Alpine in like the first like 4 races or something. Because Alpine was by far the worst team last year. But
Well, yeah.
God, Aston and Cadillac are so
Well,
far behind.
everyone's got like leniency for Cadillac because they're new.
Yeah,
Aston is an
Aston.
embarrassment.
Aston's a horrible embarrassment. But I mean, they're like those four drivers are like literally a minute behind. It's so bad. They're not
It's ridiculous.
scoring. At
No,
least not for the
no.
next few weeks.
Unless everyone crashes.
Possible.
Everyone crashes except for the two Cadillacs. They get a bunch of victory laps in a row, and then they finish in like, I mean, a 1-2 is 43 points, so that puts them in 4th place.
No,
Right?
they're gonna battle each other and just crash. They'll crash
Yeah,
too.
that would
No one gets any
if
points.
Cadillac finished 1-2 and everyone else crashed, they would put them from 10th to 4th.
Yeah, that's the only that's how they have to score points.
That's gonna happen in
With the,
Monaco.
anything's possible, I
That's
guess.
happening in not in Canada, but Monaco. You heard it here first.
Even if everyone crashes, the Astons probably won't start the race. Like it doesn't even matter.
They'll
They're
find a dude. That would be imagine everyone crashes except for the two Astons, and the car can't finish the race distance.
they just can't
Oh
get
my
there.
god.
They're taking like long pit stops. They're taking like 15-minute pit stops, and they finally just have to call it. Say we can't do this, guys. This is awful.
That would
It's
be
embarrassment of the
awesome.
sport.
That would be awesome. And I
You
hope it
just
happens in
qualify.
Monaco too. Like that would be the best place for it to happen.
certainly be legendary.
Yes. So below Alpine is Haas. They had a very nothing burger weekend, which for them is a disappointment. It's a step down from where they were. They just weren't fast, and they honestly didn't bring that many updates to the car. I do think they can turn around. I think they can catch up to Alpine, and I'm hoping that Miami was a hiccup for the team. But other than that, I don't have much to say about Haas. They were super under the radar all weekend.
Yeah, Behrman hasn't really done anything from the first
Yeah,
couple
Behrman
races.
struggled. Ocon struggled.
Ocon's been struggling. He's got 1 point.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything.
Yeah, so rough, under the radar weekend for Haas, which in maybe previous years, an under the radar weekend would be good for the team, but not anymore. Now we want them. We want to be hearing about them. We want to see them overtaking and in the points, and they couldn't get it done in Miami.
How long? Do you know how long Ocon has a contract for?
I think it is expires after this year.
Ooh, yikes!
Yes, Ocon and Hulk's contract's up at the end of this year.
Ooh,
Ocon's
yikes!
is. Albon's might be as well, although I don't think Albon is necessarily in any danger. Colapinto's, I think, is up at the end of this year as well, but I think that's just because he's always been on 1-year contracts because Flavio sucks. I don't know how long Bottas and Perez's contracts are, but again, I don't think there's any expectation for them to perform incredibly. And then Stroll has an indefinite contract, so
Stroll is a daddy's boy, as we all know.
yes.
So poor Hulk and poor Ocon, if they don't pick their shit up, it's
Hulk got
wraps.
his podium, and he's a little older.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
general vibe is that Ocon is not going to be in the sport next year if this continues.
I mean, it looks pretty bad. So yeah, that makes sense.
So that would be 2 years in a row being beat by his younger, like newer teammate. And the problem with Haas is, Behrman's just waiting around for that Ferrari seat to open up.
Yeah. If Andrew's in this call, oh man. Give it to him. Yeah, my owner's on the island, so what? Your owner can't afford a driver.
Yeah. Well, they would like Haas kind of seems to be like where like Hulk and Magnussen were both on Haas, 3 years ago, and then like Ocon moved to Haas. It's kind of like where drivers who have nowhere else to go.
So Bottas and Perez when they get new
Tyler gets
drivers,
young
they're going to
drivers.
Haas.
Yeah. No, I think at that point they would both retire. I think when Lewis retires, Alonso, Bottas, and Perez are not too far behind. They'll be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't keep racing. Maybe Lewis is right. So
Maybe this does suck.
yeah.
Who knows?
All right, let's keep moving on here. Racing Bulls had a bright yellow livery, which is the most exciting thing they did all weekend. Lawson didn't finish the race after a ton of technical issues, part of which caused his crash with Gasly, which we kind of mentioned earlier. When you saw the onboard of the crash from Lawson's perspective, all of the lights on his steering wheel lit up at the exact same time, and the car just didn't like turn or anything. So he had a huge issue, and then it ended up retiring the car because of it. And Lindblad did not even start the sprint, so their updates to the car didn't bring the performance they wanted. As even when they did race, they were towards the back. I think the team can turn it around. They were doing pretty well at the start of the year, comparatively, but it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult with the progress Alpine made, the progress Haas I think will make, and the progress that Williams is making currently.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of in the same boat as Haas, and where they started pretty good, but with the McLarens back in and with Williams doing better, they're just going to be pushed to the side, and they can't really like Lindblad was showing sparks because he was able to qualify pretty high and like race against some of the top talent, and now he's stuck in the back.
Right. And I want to have more faith in Racing Bulls than I do in Haas just because they're Red Bull, but I don't. I think Haas is in a better position.
Yeah, and I think Behrman's certified good driver.
Yes.
So
yeah. So anyway, speaking of Williams, they got a double points finished. They did it.
Let's go!
Williams.
Huge for them this year, and while they still are a long way off of where they were last year, they've made some solid improvements. They raced well, and while Sainz wasn't happy about Verstappen, Albon gave him Verstappen a bit of an actual defense. But the two were definitely happy to finish 9th and 10th in the race. They brought home 3 points for the team. They do still need to get the car's weight down, and I believe the progress will keep coming for them. So Williams stock is rising. Buy.
Now, can they
Yay!
get to Haas and Alpine? I think they can. I mean, Haas has already fallen off a bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
believe.
think it's gonna be tough just because of how rough the year started. But and how like, you know, let's say that Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and Verstappen, and you know what? Let's just say Hadjar as well. Let's say the top four teams are locks for the points. That leaves 2 spots left for points in the races and none for the sprints. So points are really hard to come by, and it's not a lot of points. You get 3 total for finishing the last 2 spots. So being at such a disadvantage early on in the season with the points available is difficult. It's a difficult hill to climb, but that's not to count them out, and I think they will. And obviously, the top 4 teams aren't always a lock for the points. Anything can happen. So I can see Williams getting up there, but it's not going to be easy.
It's gonna be very slow. I mean, we've already seen it with
Yes.
the McLaren's back of like we're like, oh, Colapizza did so good. He scored like what, like 4 points or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
it's so little. Gasly scored something in the sprint. He scored 1 point. It's so little, but it
It
takes so much
matters,
effort to get that. Yeah,
and it matters.
and it matters to
So
me.
yes, that's important. Below Williams is Audi. They had a horrible weekend. Bortoleto got disqualified from the sprint after an air intake regulation breach, and Hulkenberg didn't start the sprint or finish the race. A weekend to forget for a team that needs more weekends to remember. I feel like there's a lot of instability in this team right now, both with the team in reliance and in personnel. Wheatley leaving hit them really hard, and it's showing. I thought maybe bringing in the new head of the racing, whatever, the racing director, would be good for the team, but it's looking like it's going to be a long year for Audi. Maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm kind of like you're only as good as your last race. Maybe I'm falling into that a little bit, but Audi just does not look, they don't look great.
I
And they
mean,
had a really horrible showing in Miami.
they did kind of look like this last year, and then they had like resurgence in the middle for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
maybe that'll
But toward the
happen.
end as well.
Yeah, their beginning was awful. We thought they were just as bad as Alpine. They scored like 2 points in the first like bunch of races.
Yeah.
Um, but in contrast to that, the beginning of this year was like the time for midfield teams to score points, that we just said. And they were supposed to be good. And they weren't. They were bad. So they
Yeah.
kind of already missed their window. Like, even if they get better, like we talked about, there's not many opportunities to score points anymore.
Yeah. So it's gonna be rough, I think, for Audi. Maybe it'll be very track dependent for them on
And
whether they
so
do
far,
good or not.
none of the tracks.
Yeah, so far it's none of them. Next we have Cadillac. I had very high hopes for Cadillac. If you watched the preview, I had really high hopes for Cadillac coming into this week, and those hopes were not met, and that's okay. They made progress. Perez looked feisty, especially during the sprint, and I think it's a good weekend for them, even if they fell away during the course of the actual race. Good progress for the team overall, and I can't complain about what Cadillac is doing. And again, there's no expectations for them to finish even in the points. So hoping for points is very like it's a very lofty goal.
The car is absolutely no pace. Like, I guess their biggest chance is Monaco or the tracks you can't really pass on.
But they have to qualify, which
And
they can't do.
yeah, they can do that either. But hopefully someone spins out or something, and they can just squeeze up. Because there's points during this race where it's mostly because of pit stops, but they're in like the like 12th, I think, or something, and they're fighting a little bit. But as the laps went on, they
When
just had
they
no
are
pace.
racing with other cars, they can fight. But then the problem is they fall away quickly.
Yeah, once they get past, they can't come back. They got
Right.
no speed. They have a
So,
need for speed, and it's not being met.
yeah. So we will, I still have high hopes for them, and I think they're gonna get on. I think Cadillac has points. I think it's gonna happen this year. For a team I'm not confident is gonna get any points is Aston. They brought 0 updates to the car, 0, which is
They
like a
did.
total failure. Now, to be fair, when I say update, the tracked updates are things in like the aero package and the steering column, like Red Bull did, or like a new front wing. Aston's updates were in more technical things like the power unit and attempting to fix the vibrations in the car. So they weren't tracked as like quote unquote official updates. They were more just kind of tuning the engine more. But still, bringing a single like change, which means they're very confident in the design of the car and it's the engine. But I don't know how realistic that is. But they still did horribly. They were just sitting at the back of the pack with Cadillac. The car is still a disaster. It's not looking like it's gonna improve anytime soon. There was this dude on Reddit who was like, the 5-week break is gonna bring a new miracle. He had this whole conspiracy. He was wrong. He was
Yeah.
super wrong.
Do they have faith in their design, or is it that they can't change it? They don't. It's like it's just faulty to like it's just over.
I think
That's
they have
it.
faith in the design because they don't know the engine is so terrible that they don't know they don't know if it is a problem with the design of the car because the engine sucks. Also, the engine doesn't fit in the car, which is a design problem. But they are very like, and I think it's hard to tell if like the rest of your car sucks if the engine can't produce.
Yeah. All you know is the car sucks.
Yeah, it's like that Prius.
Yeah.
The engine is terrible, so you don't notice that the rest of the car is also bad.
Or you notice it so much you don't want to drive it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But then you buy it for things like gas mileage.
Yeah, that's why they have it. They knew gas was gonna be expensive, so they got a
Yes,
car where it's
they got
got
yeah,
great efficiency. It's got great
the
efficiency.
Prius of F1 cars. What a sad state.
It's got a great efficiency, and they don't have to do as many laps because they can just, they'll be lapped by the end, maybe twice.
Yeah, sure.
And so
They
that's
are doing one last lap per race than everyone
that's
else.
savings.
Yeah. But yes, overall, Miami was a chaotic but fun race weekend. The yo-yoing of the regs has been dampened a bit, but obviously not completely. Didn't really talk about that much with the reg changes and everything. But there were definitely some yo-yo overtakes happening. And McLaren resurgence has given some hope for a potential title fight down the line. Uh, Before we get into final thoughts, certified Ferrari moment is going to Ferrari this week. They lost positions despite gaining pace and being the only team capable of starting consistently fast. Both their pit stops were slow. Leclerc was mad on the radio after they called him into pit with no discussion with him, and the spin at the end sealed the deal for Ferrari. The honorable mention, though, I have to give it to the broadcast graphics team, miserably failing to react to the safety car. If you watch the race live, it took them like it felt like 5 minutes for them to actually put up a safety car graphic. It's like put up the tracker again to figure everything out. It was just a disaster. And everyone was like confused. Everyone was like, what is happening here?
Oh, and they're trying to figure out like what happened because I mean it took like 5 minutes to figure out what happened because suddenly three drivers were out of the race
No,
and
Lawson
we
was
had no
still
idea
in.
what happened.
He retired in the
Oh
pits
yeah,
later.
yeah. Well, yeah, it was Gasly and
Hadjar
Hadjar were
on the
out, and
same
then
lap, yeah.
the broadcast team is like, "Why are they on separate sides of the track? What happens?"
Yeah. So
Also for the yo-yoing thing, it is much more interesting to watch the yo-yoing when there's three cars instead of two,
yes.
because I mean we saw it with Norris. It was Norris, Leclerc, and Antonelli all up there, and when two of them were yo-yoing, that third car could use them like being really inefficient to try to get ahead, and so that really helped with the game theory and strategy of it all.
Yeah. So unfortunately, most of it was with just two cars.
Yeah.
So Hannah, any thoughts on the race?
Very exciting. I loved when the cars were spinning all over the place. Yeah, great time.
Excellent. Nat, anything you'd like to add? I know you're driving home still, so no worries,
No,
no
it's
pressure.
okay. I'm home now, but I know I think you guys covered everything really well. I have nothing to add.
Good. How do you feel
Yeah.
about your boys at McLaren?
So excited, honestly. I was wondering if they were ever gonna pull it together, but then the sprint happened, and I was like, "Oh, okay, here we go. I'll lock it back in."
Yeah, they pulled it together.
Yeah.
So now, what are your thoughts on going into Canada, where McLaren had their one incident of the year?
Here, one incident of the year. I think
Well,
I'm gonna at least put like one of them on the podium. I think.
the one
But I
incident where they crashed into each other.
yeah that one. Not bringing back memories. But I think they've learned. There's a lot of growth. I think there was a lot of growth. I think they've learned. I don't think it'll happen again unless it's something really weird. Um, but I think I'm thinking about putting one of them on the podium for next weekend. So we'll see.
I don't think you'd. Well, not next weekend, the weekend after, but I
Oh
don't think
shoot,
you're
two
wrong for that.
weekends from now.
Yes, we have a break next week, which
Yes.
we'll get into. But first, I want to say I have a new thing I'm gonna do. I'm calling it F1 FM. Basically, if I find a fun little radio message in the race, I'm gonna put it up here. And this one comes from Perez's engineer, who said verbatim, "We are expecting a shower in 2 to 3 laps and want to survive it." That was the Cadillac mindset, survival. And I thought that was really funny. It just got to me.
Also, shout out to the Claire one where he's like, "Where's the rain? You told me there was gonna be rain. Where is it?"
Yes. Well, that was a consistent theme with just about everybody. It was, hey, it's going to rain, and then it doesn't rain at all. So everyone played weatherman and everyone failed. Turns out it's actually hard to predict the weather. So pick the podium. We have a lead change, but first I've got some little stats here. Loyalty is rewarded, or is it? Sam has now officially resorted to picking Antonelli to win every race, and it worked for him. Nate, who has picked Leclerc to win every race, has not found the same success. So loyalty is only rewarded occasionally here. And then we were forecast a podium. Everyone who picked Russell to podium in both races this week were rewarded with absolutely nothing. Russell belief is at an all-time low, just like the rain during the race.
He does everything and doesn't get podium. He
Does
struggles and
everything,
cries in the back.
does everything, doesn't score. Well, he scores, but yeah, no podium. No podium. I was really hoping I was going to be able to write a does everything, gets third place for Russell, but not so much this time. He was close, but not close enough. These scores for Pick the Podium. Sam has taken first place with 133 points. I'm in second with 114. Nat remains in third. She's got 91 points. But coming up behind her, Hannah has 79. So it's not that much
Oh
of a
yeah.
gap between you two, a 12-point gap. And then Nate has 76, Andrew has 69, and Dave has 16.
Nice.
Which is more than you had last year? No.
Love that.
You had 98 points at the end of the year. Never mind.
Well, 63 if you count me losing them all.
What happened?
Because I wanted to get the triple. Well, we did the quiz at the end, and I said, "Can I add whatever I score?" And then I scored negative.
Yeah.
Negative 35 points.
Right. So that is that's our standings. We will be back in 2 weeks for the Canadian Grand Prix preview. It's another sprint weekend, so there's 2 podium predictions needed, and it's a strong track for Mercedes. I think I can predict a lot of people's podium predictions. Will Russell fight back or Antonelli further his lead? There's only one way to find out, and that'll be to come back here in 2 weeks as we talk about the Canadian Grand Prix. Thank you guys for being here, and good night.